Hi everybody! Today I will show you how to connect a JSON database to our PyQt5 application. Now, in part 1 of this project, we've already learned how to create a graphic interface of a trivia game. I highly recommend to click on the link in the description and check it out before we continue. But how exactly do we turn this interface into a fully functional game? Let's do this together, step by step. And we will begin by downloading my trivia game repository from GitHub. We will only focus on the part 2 starter files folder, and we will open both Python files with our favorite code editor. And once we do that, we're good to go. We will begin with our database. So we will navigate to opentdb.com, which stands for Open Trivia Database. As simple as that. We will hit the API button and we will customize all the different options. Now, in my case, I would go for 50 different questions because 50 would be the maximum number you can extract from here. The category I would like to pick is computer science because our trivia is all about who wants to be a programmer, so it makes a lot of sense. The difficulty would be medium. I don't believe I'm smart enough for the hard difficulty. And we will also select the multiple choice questions type. Now, the difference between this and true and false is that multiple choice gives you 4 different answers and true and false gives you only 2 possible answers. So let's hit multiple choice and we will leave it at the default encoding and we will generate the API URL. Then we can copy the link from above and we will paste it inside our functions.py file. And for now, we will only keep it as a comment because I want to go over the starter files first. Now, you guys may have already noticed that we'll be working with 2 different Python files this time. The first file is programmer.py, and it only contains information about the window of our application. And it is also calling the first frame of our game, which for now is set to frame number 2, but we will change it shortly. And we can find all the different functions of our frames inside functions.py. In fact, you should be very familiar with most of the code inside the functions file, because that's exactly what we've done in part 1 of this project. The only 2 changes I've applied here is adding frame number 3, which is the frame that indicates that we won the game, as well as frame number 4, which indicates that we lost the game. So in order to read our database, we will need to import a few modules. I'm just gonna copy and paste them. You guys will already have them in the starter files. So we are importing requests, which will help us access the URL. We are importing JSON because our database is in a JSON format. We are also importing pandas to make our data look much more organized. And last but not least, we are importing random, which we will use later on. So right below our comment, we will open our database with URL open, and inside the round brackets, we will, as you guessed, specify the URL, and we will type it inside a string. And right after the round brackets, we will name this expression web page by using the as keyword. And now we can safely load our JSON file by typing data equals JSON.loads, and inside the round brackets, we specify our web page expression, which we will then read with the help of a read method, and then decode with the help of a decode method. And since I always like my data to be neat and organized, I'm going to convert it into a data frame right away by typing df equals pd.dataframe, and inside the round brackets, data, which is our variable from above. And now we can go ahead and have a quick look in our data by printing, let's say, the first 5 values of our data frame. We'll do this with df.head. Let's save the file and let's rerun it inside our terminal. Gonna move this away, and we can see that our data consists of 2 different columns. There's the response code, which always seems to be 0, and there's the results, which looks much more like what we're looking for. And that's why we will target the results column inside our code. So instead of converting all our data into a data frame, we will only convert the data in the key of results. If we save this file and rerun it, we are getting a much better access to our data. And you guys may notice that we have 6 different columns now, but our terminal is not really displaying all of them. So let's go ahead and have a look at the titles of our columns. And we can easily view it by refactoring our print statement to df.columns. We'll save the file, rerun it, and as you can see, we are getting a list of all the column names in return, but we're not really interested in most of these columns. We only need the question, the correct answer, and the incorrect answers to create our trivia game. So let's go ahead and extract all the data from these columns. To do this, we will define a preload function with def preload data, where our question data will equal to df in the key of question. Our correct answer will equal to df in the key of correct answer. And lastly, our wrong answers will correspond to data frame in the key of incorrect answers. And once we extracted our data, we can go ahead and store it on a global level, similarly to what we've done with our dictionary of widgets. For this, we will create a brand new dictionary, which we will call parameters, where our parameters would be question, which will equal to an empty list at first. The second parameter would be answer, number 1, and we will do the same for the rest of the answers. And lastly, we also want to store the correct answer, also as an empty list. And once we defined our global dictionary, we can go ahead and append our preloaded data right onto it. We will type parameters in the key of question dot append question, which is our variable from above. And since question is actually a list of values, let's narrow it down to the very first index, which is index 0, and we'll repeat it for our correct and wrong answers. And that way we are only fetching one question at a time instead of getting the entire list. And we will do the exact same thing for our correct answer. We'll just copy this line of code and we will refactor question to correct. But for the rest of the answers, we will do something slightly different. We will actually create a brand new variable called all answers, which will be a combination of the correct answers and the wrong answers. We can do this by typing wrong plus correct. And because wrong has a data type of a list, it actually contains 3 different string instances, we will need to convert our correct variable into a list as well, just so we can add them on pretty easily by using the plus operator. And now if we go ahead and print all answers and make the function call, of course, we'll copy it and we will call it right below our list of parameters, our dictionary of parameters, sorry guys. We will save this file and we will rerun it from our terminal. And no matter how many times we will rerun this file, the correct answer will always appear in the very, very end of our list, which pretty much takes out all the fun from our game. Because if we know that the correct answer will always be the last answer, we'll just click on it regardless of the data it contains. And that would be an awful trivia game. So let's introduce a degree of randomness into our answers. And it's actually quite easy to do. So right below our all answers definition, we will type random.shuffle. Inside the round brackets, all answers. We will save this file and we will rerun our code. And we can see that the correct answer is now the second answer. And since now our answers appear in random order, we can safely append them to our global dictionary. We will do this by typing parameters in the key of answer 1, append all answers in the index of 0. And we will repeat it for the rest of the answers. And on your end, feel free to do this with a for loop. That's probably the best way to do it. I'm hard coding everything just to make sure everybody understands. And since now we have global access to our database, we can go ahead and replace some of the placeholder text with the actual data. For this, we will copy parameters in the key of question. We will scroll down all the way to frame 2. We will dispose of this placeholder text and paste our global list of values, focusing only on the last instance of that list by typing -1. And now if we save this file and rerun our program, we have replaced our placeholder text with the actual question from our database. Now you may notice a very odd thing going on with this hashtag 039, but we can fix it quite easily by addressing the formatting. To save some time, we will copy the formatting commands from the description of the video, and I will explain them right away. We will paste them right before appending our questions and answers to the global list. So all we did here is created a list of tuples with some bad formatting and some good formatting. And what we are doing is we are replacing the bad characters with the correct characters by calling the replace method. And because our wrong answers are a list, we have created a special list comprehension for them. So if you guys have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. And once we've pasted these commands, we can save our file, we can rerun it. And now our question is much more readable than before. Now let's go ahead and replace the placeholder text of all our buttons. To do this, we will find our second frame, just like before. We will copy our question parameter and we will replace the placeholder text with it and refactor question to answer number 1 and so on. And now once we save this file and rerun our program, we are no longer dealing with placeholder answers, but the actual answers from our database. So let's go ahead and add a callback function to these buttons. To do this, we will find our create buttons function, which we defined in part 1 of this tutorial, and we will scroll all the way to the bottom of it. And right before we return our button, we will type button.clicked.connect, and inside the round brackets, we specify a function that we haven't defined yet, but I already know that I want to call it is_correct. And just to make sure that it works, we will copy this function name. We will define it right underneath. And let's quickly check if it works. We will print I was clicked with capital I. Let's save it. Let's rerun our file. Let's click on any of the buttons and any button will return I was clicked. So our callback function is connected successfully. However, our isCorrect function is going to be much more complicated than just printing I was clicked. We will actually need to evaluate the text of each button and we'll need to compare it to the text of the correct answer. For this, we'll need to pass the text of the button as a parameter to our isCorrect function. So let's go back to our code and do just that. And if we take a quick look inside our create buttons function, we can see that we are already tracking the text of the button with an answer parameter. And that's the exact same parameter we will pass to our isCorrect function. So we will scroll down to our click event and we will pass the text of our buttons into the callback function with the help of a lambda. That's why we'll type lambda x colon our isCorrect function call with an added set of brackets and inside them our answer, which represents the text of our buttons. And since we are passing a parameter into our function call, we will need to include it inside our function definition. And then instead of printing I was clicked, let's print the answer. Save it, rerun it. Boom. Everything works. Next, we will create a conditional statement that evaluates whether the text of the button we just pressed matches the correct answer. We will do this by typing if answer equals parameters in the key of correct, and we're only interested in the last instance of that list, then we will print answer plus is correct. However, if this is not the case and the answer doesn't match the correct answer, it will create an else clause, and inside it, we will first clear the widgets of our current frame, and then we'll trigger frame number 4, which, if you guys remember, is our losing frame. Now, in my particular game, one wrong answer is enough to lose. You guys may have your own rules, but that's just how I roll. Now let's save this file, and first we will press on an incorrect answer. Boom, our losing frame is triggered. Let's do this again, but this time we will press on the correct answer. You see, it's being printed inside our terminal. Perfect. Let's move on. So right now we are only printing to the terminal that our answer is correct. However, we should be doing two different things. First, we should increment our score by 10 points, because I said so. Second of all, we should be loading a brand new question and a brand new set of answers each time we get a correct answer. We will begin with the score, and we will add it to our global list of parameters. And since our score always starts from 0, we can actually add it into our list. And since we are now tracking it on a global level, we can replace our placeholder with the actual score. So let's navigate to frame number 2. We will say bye-bye to AT, and we will replace it with parameters in the key of score in its last instance. And since QLabel is only accepting string input, we will also convert it into a string. And now we can safely go back to our isCorrect function and continue our conditional statement. For this, we will create a local variable called temp score, which will equal to our parameters in the key of score in the last instance. We can get rid of the old score by copying parameters in the key of score and adding a .pop method to the very end. And once our list of scores is empty, we can go ahead and populate it with the new score, which we will do with .append. And inside the round brackets, we specify our temp score plus 10. Lastly, we will update the text of our score widget with the new values by typing widgets in the key of score in the instance of -1 .set text, and inside the round brackets we specify the string instance of our parameters. Actually, I'm going to copy it. Parameters in the key of score in its last instance. And let's rerun everything. So let's go ahead and press on the correct answer to test if our score increments. Oh, perfect. Works like a charm. The more we press, the higher our score gets. Now let's go ahead and load a brand new set of questions and answers each time we get it right. And the way to do this is actually not as complicated as you may think. If you guys go back to our preload data function, you see that we are targeting the first index each and every time. Instead, we will create a brand new parameter called idx, which will represent the index of our questions and answers. We will then add an index key to our list of parameters in the very end. And I would like this index to be randomly selected time and time again. That's why we will use random.randint, as in random integer. And we will need an integer between 0 and 49 because we only have 50 questions in our database. We will, of course, need to pass our index parameter to it by typing parameters in the key of index. and more specifically, the very last instance of that list. But the only problem is we are calling the preload data function on a global level, while it makes much more sense to call it when the game starts and each and every time we get a correct answer. That's why we will cut this line of code, we will paste it inside our start game function right before triggering our second frame. We will then scroll down to our isCorrect function and we will include it right before we update the text of our widgets. And since we've done such a good job with clearing our scores, we will do the exact same thing for our list of indices. So right below our append command, we will type parameters in the key of index dot pop. And right away, we will copy this and we will append a brand new random rand int between 0 and 49. And since we've just preloaded a brand new set of questions and answers, we will need to update the text of our widgets to match the new values. We will do this by copying this command from our score and refactoring it. Now, obviously, widgets in the key of question, and not obviously, we will target the index of 0 rather than the last instance. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. So let's go ahead and remove this string conversion and update our parameters in the key of score with our parameters in a key of question. And we'll do the exact same thing for all our answers. And before we save our file, there's one more thing to consider. If we scroll up all the way to our start game function, we see that we preload our data before calling frame 2. That's why we will need to update frame number 2 to frame number 1 inside our programmer.py file. We will save this file. We will return to our functions.py file. We can save it too, and we can safely rerun our code. Cool, so we see that we already have a brand new set of questions and answers. I've done a little bit of cheating and I am printing the correct answer to the terminal just because I'm not even smart enough for the medium difficulty. My apologies, you guys. I tried, it doesn't work. So according to our terminal, the correct answer is Clipper chip. Let's click it. Perfect! A brand new question is being loaded and a brand new set of answers is appearing here. And according to this set of answers, Santa Clara will be the correct one. So let's go ahead and click it. What? Okay, something must be wrong with our code. So let's go back and have a quick look. And as you guys may guess, we will need to debug our isCorrect function. To do this, right before our conditionals, we will print the answer as well as the correct answer. And since I'm printing a bunch of other stuff to the terminal, I'm also gonna print a separator. We will save it and we will rerun everything. Okay, let's start. So the first answer is Hewlett-Packard, which we already knew, so let's just press it. And we see that there is no issue here because our answer equals the correct answer. So far so good. Our second answer would be print hello world, which we also already knew. We will press it and we can see exactly what went wrong. So even though we've set a brand new text to our button, we haven't really updated the answer variable. So it seems that time and time again, our answer variable will equal this particular value. And the way to fix it is instead of passing only the text of our button into our isCorrect function, we will need to pass the entire button object with the updated text. So let's scroll up to our isCorrect function. Actually, our isCorrect function call, instead of passing the text of our button, we will pass the entire button. And we will need to update it inside our function definition. We will replace answer with btn. We will remove these print statements so they don't confuse us. And instead of typing if answer, we will type if btn.text, brackets equals parameters correct -1. We will copy btn text and replace answer with it, and we will save our file and rerun it. Okay, so Santa Clara, then Utah, teapot, perfect, then 200, perfect. But our score cannot grow infinitely, it needs to stop at 100, and then we win the game. So let's go ahead and update it inside our code, along with a few other small details. To win the game, we will include a new condition right above the else clause. We will type if parameters in the key of score in the instance of -1 equals 100, then we will clear the widgets and we will trigger frame number 3, which is our winning frame. And if we're already tackling our winning and our losing frames, let's add some functionality to our try again buttons. We will scroll all the way down to frame number 3, and we will add a callback to our try again button with button.clicked.connect, and inside the round brackets, frame 1, which will start our game. And if we copy this command and paste it inside frame number 4, we are almost done. The only thing we are not updating yet is our score. It still has a placeholder inside our losing frame, so let's update it with our actual losing score. Actually, it's string instance. Let's save our file and let's rerun it. Okay, we will begin with the wrong answer, so let's select United States. Boom, your score is 0. Let's try again. We are not clearing the widgets on frame 1, so let's fix it. We will add it to the very first line of code, clear widgets. Cool, let's play, and we will select the correct answer at first, so let's say 23, and now we will select a wrong answer just to test if everything works as expected. So let's do if then. We see that our score is no longer the placeholder of 50 that we had there, and we see that our try again button triggers the first frame and clears all the widgets from it, so it looks great. Let's go ahead and click play again, and we see that two things happen. So the first thing that happens is our score is not being cleared back to 0, which is a big no-no because every time we need to start from scratch. And the second thing we see is that our list of parameters is not being cleared as well. And because I am super OCD, we're gonna fix it first and then we will test our app once again. So right below clear widgets, we will define a brand new function, which we will call clear parameters. And just like in clear widgets, we will say for parm in parameters if parameters in the key of parm is not equal to an empty list, then we will copy our for loop from our clear widgets command function. We will paste it, we will fix the indentation, and we will refactor widgets to parameters and widget to parm. Now, if you guys remember, we actually have two parameters that are not allowed to be empty. So if we scroll up a bit, we see that our index and our score always have to be populated. That's why we will copy this random command from our index. We will scroll down to our clear parameters function, and instead of clearing all of them, we will update our index and score with their initial values. That's why we will type parameters in the key of index dot append random randint. And right below, we will do the same to our score. So parameters in the key of score dot append 0. And now we can safely call clear parameters inside our start game function right after we clear our widgets. Additionally, we can scroll up to our list of parameters and remove our values just so we don't accumulate more values than what we actually need. So let's go ahead and save everything. And this time we will test all the annoying little things that didn't work for us when we ran this app previously. So we will play, we will select the correct answer first, and then we will select the wrong answer. We will try again, we will hit play, and our score just zeroed up. Perfect. And if we take a look inside our parameters, we see that they only accumulate up until the point we start a new game. Once we start a new game, a brand new list of parameters is being loaded. And now the only thing that we didn't test yet is our winning frame. So let's go ahead and play this game, get to 100 points, and see what happens. Perfect, so we reached 100 points, we won the game, we got our third frame displayed. Let's try again and see if everything still works as expected. Yes, our score is 0, our list of parameters has been updated, and I always try to test the app as much as I can. Try to click on all sorts of different buttons. Sometimes it's correct answers, sometimes it's wrong answers. And the more you play, the more bugs you can potentially find, if you can find any. And if we're already talking about bugs, I actually have a riddle for you guys. There is one little detail that we didn't keep in mind while building our app. What is that detail? Why don't you comment it below? If you know the answer, of course, and also please let us know how you solved it on your end. Now, I don't have any fancy prizes for those who get the right answer, but I do promise a virtual tap on the shoulder for those who get it right. And that's it. We just finished building our trivia game application. Congratulations, you guys. If you want to be extra awesome, please leave me a comment below saying which GUI library you would like me to cover next. And why? Is there a particular reason you would like me to use this library? Is there a particular device you would like to use this library on? Please let me know and I will build my next lessons accordingly. Thanks again for watching and I will see you very soon.